Newton, and today we're going to talk about how to make cording. And cording is basically just a fabric strip wrapped around cord. And I love making cording and putting it on different projects. It's a really nice way to finish off the edge of a pillow or the edge of the valance or panels. There are lots of different sizes of cording, and these are the three sizes that I probably use the most: 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/2 inch. Today we're going to make 1/4 inch cording, and I'm going to show you how wide you want to make this strip. So what I would do is just put your cording in a strip of lining. Excuse me. Place a pin very close to the cording, and then I make a mark for my 1/2 inch seam allowance and just cut right there. Then just measure what you've cut off. And this measures about 1.75 inches. So that is how wide I would want to make my cording strip. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to cut out your cording strips. We're going to be making two pillows. We're going to pretend like we're making two 20-inch pillows, and we need to figure how much cording we need to cut out. So on our chart here, we're making two pillows, and they're each 20 inches by 20 inches. We take the 20 inches by the four sides of the pillow, and we get 80 inches. Then I add about 10 inches for extra, and since we're making two pillows, we take our 90 inches by the two pillows, and we know that we need to make 180 inches of cording. Most of the time when I make cording, I make it with about 1.5 yards of fabric. And there will be extra fabric left over after I cut the cording. And usually you can make at least cut out a pillow or two from that extra fabric. The reason that I use 1.5 yards of fabric is that it makes for a really nice long strip when you make your cording on the bias. So to make the cording on the bias, what I've done is I've taken my fabric, I've folded it diagonally with my face sides together. This gives me a nice bias edge, and bias means that you're going at an angle from the grain of the fabric. And what that does is it makes the fabric very stretchy there, which is nice when you make cording. It makes your cording much more forgiving. It's easier to go around a corner, and it's just a lot easier to work with when you make your cording on the bias. So I've already marked one strip of cording. And I know that usually on the bias I get about 70 inches or so from this first strip. Since we need 180 inches, I'm going to be cutting out 3 strips. So I've got a double strip here, so that's 2, and I'll just need to make one more strip right next to it. There's a couple of different ways to measure for your cording strips. We figured before that we were going to need 1.75 inch strip, 1.75 inch strip to go around our cording. So you can make a mark, put your grid right at 1.75 inches, and just draw your line. The other way that you can do it is you can just take your ruler and place it and mark it 1.75 inches, several places along, and just use a ruler to connect the lines. Once you've got that all done, then you start cutting out your strips. In this video, I'm going to show you how to pin together your bias cording strips. So I've got my cording strips all cut out, and as you can see with these angles, it's kind of confusing as to where you need to pin or how to pin. So I'm going to show you the method that I found is the easiest to do. So I take my top strip and I just pull it across so that the other end comes over. And I've got my right sides together. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that your strips form a 90-degree angle and that you've got the angles lined up right here. You're going to just pin, and then what I like to do is pull this second strip over, lay it with the third strip so that the right sides are together again, and pin that. Today I'm going to show you how to sew your cording strips together and how to make the cording. And what we've got here is we've got 3 strips of fabric, and so we're going to have 2 seams so that we end up with 1 long strip of fabric. When I sew the seam, what we're going to want to do is we want to sew from this angle where these 2 angles meet clear over to where these 2 angles meet. So usually it's about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to sew the first seam. And I don't even need to stop and cut my threads and start over. I just put my second seam in right next to it, right next to the first one. Then you cut your threads between the 2 seams. Excuse me. Now we're going to put the cording into the fabric strip and sew it together. So we have our fabric strip wrong side up, right side down. We're going to lay our cording right in the middle and fold the fabric over. Bring it to the machine. And I'm using a zipper foot today to make the cording. What it does is it stitches right next to the cording for me. So what I like to do is to make sure that these fabrics aren't shifting around and getting messed up, I put my thumb under the fabric and my fingers on top, and I really hold tight. I also hold here in the back behind the zipper foot, and I just allow the fabric to pull my hand forward towards the foot. That will keep all the layers together and they won't shift as much. So I just sew right next to the cording, moving my hands back again and holding my fabrics together. I let the machine bring my hands forward to the foot, and I fold my fabric over, hold together again, and sew along the cording. Okay, so I've sewn a lot of my cording, and now I've come up to my first seam. And what I like to do is finger press the seam open when I come up to it. That way you don't have a big bunch of fabric in here when you're trying to fold your fabric over the cording. This will make a much nicer seam. If you press that open with your fingers and just roll the fabric over. And then again, I really like to hold on tight right there and let the machine bring my hands up, and I'm still holding on, and I move my fingers over a little bit because I want to make sure all those layers with the seam and everything are still laying flat. And I just go across it and continue on the rest of the cording.